G'day folks, Greg Budd from Bud's Baits here. Welcome to the African Lure Craftsman. In the ensuing episodes, we'll be taking you along while we design and handcraft timber lures and hopefully get out into the water to use them. I've designed lures for some of the big boys in the industry and I sell my lures worldwide. I'll do my best to show you some of the hacks I've learned along the way. Stay with us and experience the wonders of casting lures to bass, giant catfish, tigerfish in Zimbabwe, which I'm fortunate to call my home, and cross borders with us as we'll target the denizens of the deep all along the African coast in magical places such as Mozambique. Through it all, I'll share a bit of my daily life and business experience, which can be quite tough in Zimbabwe at times, as we take you along to run the daily gauntlet of survival. Subscribe and click the notifications button to stay with us. Good day guys, welcome back to the African Lure Craftsman, and I think the fourth episode of our exciting Garfish half-beak build. In the meantime, I've gone on and done a few things, otherwise this build just would have taken far too long to do. And what I'm going to go through very quickly before we proceed is the different things I've done in absence to take it to the next stages. You'll see in front of me I've got all the little bits and pieces cut out. I've got the fins and the tail cut out of polycarbonate. I haven't shaped or sculpted those yet. We'll get to that further down the line. All the fins have done. I've started doing some of them. There's the dorsal, the anal fin, everything's there. I've also partitioned the bait in drawings in pencil. And I've done the hack of gluing all the cardboard detail of the upper column, the gill plate, and the various different details on the face. I haven't yet done these fins, and there's a reason for that, is because I want to section the bait first, and I'm going to actually put a lift or raise, flare these fins a bit. I don't know if you can see that, so they're kind of like out. And there's quite an easy way to do that with cardboard and to make it strong as well, using the technique of the jacaranda dust and super glue. So we'll get to that as well. But let me just talk you through this here. So if you want to see this hack again, I think it was on our Conquistador build, episode 3, I think it was. It covers the whole process of gluing the cardboard on there. There's a couple of other things we didn't cover in there, and that's the shaping of the cardboard, which is also very important. One of the techniques I use is obviously after sticking the cardboard on here, via the method shown in episode 3 of the Conquistador build, is just sanding it back and shaping it with 220 grit, 320. 220 initially is probably better, then go down to 320, and then maybe to 600 or something like that to get it smooth. One of the processes though is you'll keep on finding you'll get ridges or you'll get little white patches like that show through. It's not because they haven't been impregnated by super glue, it's just a little bit of fiber that's come through. Keep applying the super glue. Sand it down, keep applying the super glue. Use the dust you're sanding from the cardboard, which you'll find will gather around the different recesses and things like that. Use the dust and add super glue and sand it down again. Use the dust to fill in the areas underneath the gill plate, things like that, anything that's sticking out. And you'll get a very solid structure. And something that, as I've shown you before, I haven't got anything sharp and hard here, is probably harder, well, definitely harder than the wood itself. This is a part of the bait that's never going to really break here. So the other thing I did on this bait is, if you look at our Garfish profile on the picture here, let me just pick this up. You'll see where I've marked the little pencil line. There's a little upturn on the top of the mouth, like a little snout there. That I found was going to be too hard. I would have had to remove too much material in the wood, so I built that in on cardboard as well. I've got here the little cutout I used. You can see that there. I just glued that on top of there using the sanding technique and the dust. You can see where I filled it in there, and now we've got a nice little raised mouth on the end there. I'll get to just now shaping this beak. I've decided, and we've always said this is a work in progress, It's a freestyle bait. We're kind of deciding what we're going to do as we go along. I've decided not to extend the beak. I think it just won't have the integrity we need. I'm going to end it there. I'm going to put my toe point, I think, on the bottom of the beak. I'm going to have to play with that as well. And we're going to do a single wire structure and single join point at each segment. The only area we're not is the tail, because the last hook point will probably be in this segment here, and that's where we need the integrity. The tail, I think I'll just glue in on a single wire, twisted wire or something like that, and that should have the strength we need. What I've also done here is I've started cutting the belly slot. That is mainly so I can just get a central line to work off. And I always like that. You'll see I've drawn a line on the top, which is very important as well. And that is, so looking at the bait front ways, back ways, what I want to see is I want to see that lined up perfectly. I'm looking down right now, down the wire slot in the belly, and I can see right through to the nose there, which is great. That's what you want to do. It means it's straight. It's perfect. Getting your sections here, there's a lot of ways to do it. A lot of guys like cutting using various tools. I mean, these are some of them here. The various angles you can get using blocks and vices. And a lot of guys like cutting the slots before you even shape the wood. I don't personally like doing that, though I have done it as well. There's no right or wrong way to do it. I just decided to do this bait like this so I can have a personal touch, a feeling, have my finger on the pulse as I cut it, know exactly what I'm doing. As I say, freestyle, that's the way I like to do it. But to get these lines and to get them straight, how do you do that? Very simple hack. Strip of paper, wrap it around your bait, make sure both sides meet up, and you've got a straight line. Simple as that. Now, of course, if the bait isn't perfectly round, you're going to have a little bit of a problem. But as long as the sides that meet up where you're drawing the line are meeting up, then you've got a straight line. Same applies for there, and same applies for each one of these lines. What I do like to use to get my angles on a swim bait like this is one of the tooling aids that I've shown already. So as you'll see, I haven't done all of them. I'm going to demonstrate a couple now. If you're wondering how this is staying on here, this whole bait has been sealed already as well, and I've now drawn those lines on there, and I've actually sealed again just with super glue, just rubbing with my finger so it doesn't come off, so I don't lose those marks. I mean, they're not going to come off now. I haven't done all of them, as you can see. I've just done one to demonstrate, and I'll show you. So what we use for that is what I've showed you already is a mitre box of sorts. It comes in many shapes and forms. That one's a bit small. This is a woodworking one, and you can get these from any hardware store. And how I use that is I just get a ruler and I slot that ruler into the slots, lift it a bit so I can fit the lure in. We'll give you a good angle on this right now. Drop the ruler so it secures it. You make sure it's upright. Let me just get my glasses on. You might want to have a look at that there. And a simple, you're not going to get a perfectly straight line, but you don't want that right now anyway. You just take your ruler to cross at the intersection of the top line and the lines where the segments are going to be cut, and you just draw a small line. That's all you do. You can move it up to the next one. Drop your ruler to secure it. Make sure everything's straight. So again, just to the lines where they intercede, the cross lines and the top line. Then you move your bait down, keeping it straight. Drop the ruler, do the next, and you move it down. Drop the ruler, and you do the next one. Simple as that. Very easy. There's probably easier ways to do it. As I say, nothing's right or wrong. This is the way I've chosen to do it and learned to do it. So I'll continue doing it this way. And there's probably a million different other solutions, I'm sure, that make a lot of these jobs I'm doing far easier. But part and parcel of this whole series is working with what we've got. So that is how I do it, and that gives you the nice sections on the top, which we will just turn the bait around and we'll repeat, and we'll get the other sections. Then we'll do the same on the bottom, and you'll have a perfectly segmented bait with the angles correct that you want, and we can then take that to cutting those angles out. Okay, that just secures my marks, otherwise they'll rub off as I'm handling the bait. Let's get to the other side. All our angles on the one side there. What I'll do now is I'll just turn the bait around and I'll do the other sides, and I'll repeat the same on the bottom of the bait, and that'll give us our perfect angles to cut our incisions and get the segments we want. Now what I was going to do in the meantime is I was going to actually pre-make the wire, give you a demo just so we can get further down the line. So that's what we're going to do now quickly, is we'll redraw the lines there, and then we'll get to maybe cutting the incisions and showing you how I do that, which is not a science. It's not a rocket science. It's not exact. You've got to always bear in mind is be forgiving on yourself. Mistakes can happen, but you know there's wonderful things called filler in the form of jack dust and superglue, bicarbonate of soda and superglue, and other things as well, which I'll go into just now. So that's where we are on that. It's looking quite sexy, I think, at the moment, and I'm very excited to get this done. One thing I do want to talk about is one thing I've decided is the wire build. In this bait here, you know, it's probably going to get, despite the epoxy and everything, it'll get chewed to bits in no time with the type of fish we're going to try and catch with it. And that's going to be mackerel, wahoo, tuna, or whatever hits it. I mean, sure, sailfish would hit this as well, but now you've got so many different join points and segments, I'm sure the hook wouldn't hold in fish like that. Anyway, but the point with this is we need to get the integral strength in the bait so that we can catch a, say, 50 kg GT. We wish, but hey, that would be nice. There's only one way to do that, and that's to have the wire joined. So it's going to be joined through the bait in a single 1.6 millimeter wire, cross hoops like that. I've drawn it here. I did try and come up with another method to give you the integrity, but it's just far too technical. If you can see that there, I know my drawings aren't the best. They're all done in the workshop while I think and while I work. That's what we're going to go with. But I was thinking about pinning it, and that's another favorite way to pin swim baits. Nothing wrong with it if you're fishing for bass, pike, anything like that. But I just don't think that'll hold up in salt water. So what you'd normally do is you'd have two loops on your inner of your V, and you'd have a pin that slides through those two loops, hole drilled to both sides of the bait there. I don't think that would work. I looked at ways of reinforcing that, and that would be one way to do it. So you'd have your toe point by wire, a loop around the pin from both sides, but it's just far too technical to do. And considering we have to do that in all these different segments, I don't think it's the way to go on that bait. I think we'll get a better swim as well with just a single join. So I think that's the way we're going to go. So let's get on with that. Here we have our bait. All I've done now in the interim is I've actually fully cut my wire slot. So I've deepened it, I've widened it a little bit. What you'll notice is I haven't cut into the front of the bait here, the beak, and I haven't cut the tail because we don't really need a slot there. All we're going to need is a slot at the back here when we actually add the polycarbonate tail, and that will be pinned through here as well. So we'll get to that in a future episode. What I need to do now, and this is a little bit of a fly-by-night situation, is cut these segments. And I've done it several ways in the past. I've done it with a saw and a vise and just cut the angles. For speed, and I'm very, very worried about this, and for the purposes of this, I'm going to actually try and cut it with a little Dremel, little handheld. Well, it's a Maturk type Dremel, a rotary tool. And what I'm going to use for that is a Dremel cutting disc, a very thin cutting disc. These are fantastic little tools, by the way. The only thing is they're rechargeable and the battery doesn't last long. So how far we'll get with this, I don't know, but let's give it a go. We need to cut it because the next stage after this will be forming the wire, and I'll need those segments exact to actually make my wire joining pieces. So I think let's get into that and give it a go. Need the glasses. I'll also need the glasses for dust. I'll probably put a bit of a mask on because I tend to get, not that this does much, but I tend to get covered in dust when you're doing this. And let's go. Nice little light at the front, which does help. Let's start at the tail. Let's get our angles right. Remember, guys, what we're going to do, if you are looking at this bait right now and you think, bearing in mind it is a robust garfish, so lots of gars are lots narrower or skinnier, but remember we're going to be losing a lot of material here as well, so it's kind of going to elongate a little bit with the cuts and the joins, which I've taken into account. It's just getting these cuts here perfect, and this is a very difficult way to do it, I must say, so probably not the easiest way, but for time's sake we'll give it a go. Certainly on the back joint here we're going to give it a go. So another way is a vise and just get a hacksaw and cut those angles, probably a better way, but let's just try and give this a go quickly for time's sake. Okay, nice slot. We do need to lose material there anyway, and the reason for that is because we want a slightly different angle on the inside of each segment so that we've got more play and more action. So if I lose some material there, I'm not too bothered. Even if there's a few little nicks and whatever, I can fill them in. I'm going to sand it down a bit and we should be okay with that. Go the other way. I'm going to leave that as like that for the time being. And we're going to go the other side. Okay, and there we have two sections. They're nearly meeting up. There might be slight differences. We can fix it all up later, and we'll just get on with the other cuts now. My bad. So you guys, you'll see me here now with a hacksaw, fret saw, and various types of saws. I have done the initial incision there. We've just taken it basically through, but I'm learning that on this particular bait it's quite hard with the angles using this tool. So it's just a lesson in there that, we do our best as we go along and adjust with the times, because that's what I'm having to do right now. We're going to try and finish these incisions with the saw and get the angles right. I'm not going to use a vise. I'm just going to get them most of the way through. And that's fine there. And we will commence that one there. Sorry, my saws are also very, very blunt, which just shows I need to go and stock up on new blades. The beauty about anything, guys, is everything's fixable. Little indentations, little areas where you might have cut in the wrong place. We can fix everything. So that's the advantage of this. I never worry about those sort of things because, I mean, fillers are a great thing, particularly with that jack dust solution. Okay, I will go to this to start the hole. Not bad. Quite a sharp actual blade this. Let's just crank it up a bit. So guys, in our local language you've got a word called Tudza, and there's a few Tudzas I've made here. Tudza is a mistake, so you'll see that nothing's a science or a given. And everything's a bit of a learning curve. And though I've done many swim baits before, I've never done one of these. And it's quite large segments as well. But there's nothing we've done here that we can't fix. So there's a couple of errors and slight messes up. As you can see, I've taken the lines through. I haven't done these two cuts on the other side. Just so basically it's almost through there. But I'm going to finish this up. We'll sectionalize it. And then we'll have a look at the different segments. Wow. Okay, covered in dust. Sorry, guys. Okay, guys. So we've done as best we can with the little Dremel. Kind of lasted quite a long time. I only just got this, so it's not like I've used it a lot. The battery is lasting a bit longer than I thought it would actually, and it's still on green. So anyway, let's just clean those up. What we're going to do is going to finish up those segments by hand. As you'll see, there's a couple of little areas here and there, but we're going to sand them down. We've got to make space between them anyway, and I'm not too bothered about that. So let me just finish up with the saw here, and we'll cut it into the sections we need to cut it into. There we go. Shouldn't have done that there. No one's through. Come on. There we go. So we've got our cuts made. We've done a very, very, very appalling job, but hey, it's all part of the curve here. And one thing I don't want to do is deceive everyone out there that, hey, I know everything and everything's perfect all the time, because it isn't. And that's what we've got to get used to, is maybe correcting those mistakes and getting them sorted. Anyway, we have got our bait cut. It's looking okay. One thing to remember before we take it apart, particularly in a multi-segmented swim bait, is number the parts. Because I promise you, if you get those mixed up, it's very hard to actually figure out which one goes where, because it's all much of a muchness. So all I'll do quickly is, just with a marker, is do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and we know where the tail is. So that's marked, we know that is. So what we got here is our cuts. You can see, guys, I mean, they're pretty good that way, but there's quite a few little marks there from the Dremel, and I used a combination of the Dremel and the saw. But that's not a problem, because we've got to file that all down anyway. We've got to file that down, smooth it out, got to make these bits fit nicely. And remember, we've got to shave off a little bit of a different angle on this face here, so that when we have our segments, there's more play there. And as we've said all along, we want this guy to have a really good snaky sort of action. So those little errors there don't bother me too much at all. We'll work on all of them. I think what we'll do is we'll leave it now for this week, because that's another episode altogether, getting the bits together, getting the wire formed, getting the fin detail done. And we hope you've enjoyed. So if you like what you've seen, please hit like, subscribe, and join us for the next episode.